Welcome, everyone, to another Hog4 webinar study hall session. Today, we have Joe Haller, who is also going to be here next week when we talk about controlling media servers. Joe, do you want to say anything before we jump into some command line stuff?
Hello, thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting these webinars. And if you have any ideas for future webinars, let us know.
Yeah, there should be a survey that follows at the end of all of this. So please fill it out. Please let me know if you have more, because believe me, we're not done after media server control. We're just gonna kind of push. I'm just waiting to hear when we get the trigger to actually pull and show some things on the next release, which hopefully is sooner than later. Cool. So just a little heads up, Joe is also another product support specialist. He does the trainings. He's been around high-end for a while, so you're probably really familiar with Joe. But yeah, so he's joining me today and next week, like I said, and then we'll see who comes on after that. So let's just hop into today. Today, we are going to be discussing our command line structure and our command line syntax that Hog is really based off of. We've touched on this in previous webinars, like I've said, but like we've kind of done in the past couple where we've touched on them, they're just broken out throughout the series. So now it's kind of time to wrap it all together and give a nice little, here's the video for you guys. So let's just talk about where the command line is on Hog. So it's really easy to start pushing buttons on Hog and getting things started as you need to. There is a command line, and that's going to be this white bar once you're inside a show file. So this white bar is your command line. It's going to show you exactly what you're controlling exactly what you're typing as you're typing. So like if I want to bring up fixtures 1 through 9, as I start typing 1 through 9, we can start seeing it gets put in the command line. Now, if I hit at full or just full, it turns blue, meaning we got correct syntax. So good job. Now, if it ever turns red, that's when we have incorrect syntax there. So I think it's 1 through 9, move. When we get 1 through 9, move, it's wrong syntax. We can see that it's just completely red here, meaning that it's incorrect syntax. So if your command line ever goes red, you're going to want to hit the backspace button to get items out of that command line so that you can start your syntax over again and start what you're trying to do over again, so that you can at least get the blue that you're good to go and your command was taken. Cool. So let's talk about like a little bit of the structure on the command line now. So the command line is all built around these 5 parts, the structure of it. You have the source, mask, command, options, destination. If you can really remember those main parts, you can probably get around the desk pretty easily and make your life a lot easier on the console. So a quick overview of what each part is, and then we're going to kind of deep dive a little bit more into each part. You have the source, which is going to be where you get the data from. So like in your programmer, if you're going to record a cue, this would be the source of your cue information, because your programmer shows exactly what you're controlling at that time, what you have selected, anything that's live. So anything in here, if you're going to record a cue, becomes the source. So what information is actually going to go into that cue. Then you have the mask. Your mask is going to be how you filter out data. So inside a queue, if you have some color in here, or inside your programmer, you have some color and you have some position. If you only want to record the color and like the intensity information, you can actually mask that out to where you only record that into that queue or that scene. So you don't have all the other information at that specific time. And then you have the command. Your command is going to be what type of operation you actually want to perform. So you have a whole list of, you have a whole button bank basically of commands that are inside your desk. You have the delete, move, copy, update, merge, record. These are the main, I'm going to call them, they're the main actions or your main commands on your desk. So what do you want to do with your information? Well, I want to record a cue. So then you're going to press the record button, and that's going to become your command. Maybe you want to delete a queue. Well, then you press the delete button. There are some other actions on your desk also, like knockout. So you want to get rid of the information out of your programmer. Great. Then hit the knockout button and they go away. So that's just another command here. Then you have your options, which is going to be the behavior is how you change some of the command's behaviors. So like when you press record, you get all these options at the bottom of your display. Well, these are all different options that can change what happens when you record your cue or your palette or whatever you're trying to record at that time. And then finally, you have your destination, and your destination is going to be the object that is affected by the command. So what I mean by that is like the cue that you actually want to record. Like you want to record Q1. Well, Q1 is your destination. You want to record a group. Well, that group in the group directory is your destination at that point. There are 3 main components to the structure that I think are super important for you to remember, and that's going to be your source, command, destination. So and that's what we're going to kind of talk about next. But before I go right into it, I just want to make sure there's no questions that have come up in that time. I don't see any, but just again, making sure before I jump the gun, because usually that happens. All right, I'm going to keep going. And again, you can always put questions in. Joe's kind of guide me if I need to stop or anything to answer questions. So we're going to jump right into source, command, destination. These are the basic commands to manipulate really anything on the console. So basically like how you record your programming, like into a queue or a scene, how you record a group, how you copy information. Those all follow the 3 simple source, command, destination. And they're really required for any action that you do on the desk. So like if you want to, let's just go through an example, like record a simple group. So we just want a group here of the Uno, let's just say the Unos in the back here. So to record a group, we select those fixtures through enter. I'm going to turn on highlight here so that we can see which ones I'm selecting. 301 through enter. So we have those fixtures selected. And again, that's going to be our source because they're selected inside the programmer. So if we don't specify a source, the default source is going to be your open editor. You can see what what open editor you have based on next to your command line. See where it says programmer, kind of where my mouse pointer is. That is the open editor. So again, if you don't specify a source, then this is going to be your open editor is going to be your source. So right now we have our programmer, and that means we have these fixtures selected in here. So now to record it as a group, we hit record, and then which is our command. And then we have to specify our destination, which is where I want it to live inside the group directory. So I'm going to hit group. It's going to open up my group directory. And then I just select a place to put them. And I'm just going to put them here. And now our group is now in group 91 here. If I hit clear, there is the new object that we recorded. So again, the source for that was the fixtures I had selected inside the programmer. So the programmer, and the record was the command, and then the destination was group 91 inside the group directory. So let's just walk through also another example of this, which is going to be recording a scene with a little bit more information in it. So I'm going to use fixtures 1 through 9 at full. We're going to put them inside a color. And we're going to put them downstage a little bit. Cool. So we have 1 through 9 at full. They're in cyan color mixing, and they're in that downstage position palette here. And then we're also going to add in the solo washes on the side there. So 111 through 118 at full. And again, we can see these commands as I'm typing them on the command line here. So they're at full. We're going to put them on stage. Let's see. Cool. So they're on stage, and we're also going to put them in red here as well. So now our source that we're recording is going to come from the programmer here, and then we're going to record that into the scene directory. So we're going to hit record. So I just pressed R on my keyboard, and then we're going to open the scene directory by tapping scene. So, and then the destination is going to be the scene, whatever scene I want inside the scene directory. So we'll just place it in scene 1. So now if I double tap scene to open that scene directory, we can see we recorded in scene 1. So again, the source was the programmer. the command was record, and then that destination was the scene inside the scene directory. So that is the scene. Those are that's like really if you wanted to record information, that's where it's going to go. Now, if you wanted, there's different, like I said, there's different actions you can perform, like different commands. We have the copy button. So now if you wanted to take the information that was already in scene 1 and copy it to, let's just say, scene 10 here, that syntax is going to be our source, command, destination. So our source is where do we want to get the data from? So that means we want to grab it from scene 1. So we're going to hit scene 1, and we can see that gets put in the programmer. Our command is going to be copy. So we press copy, and then we click on the destination inside the scene directory. So now it's in scene 10. So now whenever I turn off guard, I go scene 10, it looks the exact same as what scene 1 was. So again, it was just your source, which was the scene that I wanted to copy, the command, which is the copy button, and then the destination is where I wanted that information to live. Okay, so how do we tell the console a different place to get the data from, not the programmer, or did you just mean taking data from a directory? So we can take data from a directory, or like if you have an open palette or an open object, really is where that source is going to be. So in that scene directory where I copied like scene 1 to scene 10, in that case, the source of my information is that first scene. So just by hitting scene 1, that has become now the source. So anything inside scene 1 has become the source. And then whatever actions I do after that, we'll pull from the data inside scene 1. So scene 1, again, I could do scene 1 and then delete. And it's asking, hey, are you sure you want to delete? Because the command is delete, and then the destination is just this poof, gone from your show file. So if I hit OK, then it is now gone from my show file. Or like if I want to move scene 10 to scene 1, so I want the new destination to be scene 10, I can hit, the new destination of scene 10 to be scene 1. Scene 10 is our source, move is our command, and our destination is scene 1. And we can again see that down here, copy of scene 1, move to scene 1.
And you can, a lot of the stuff that you'll find that a lot of hog programmers, myself included, are using both command line and directory. And Megan just did it a little bit there. She selected scene 10 from the buttons, but then actually selected scene 1 in the directory. It's a very common way to work. So if, for example, those 1 through 9 on the back, you go 1 through 9 at full color, 34.3, position 2, all within in the command line.
Yeah, and that's basically what I just did there. It's just whenever I'm on PC, I automatically go to button pushing. To screen pressing because it's PC. But yeah, so exactly like Joe said, whatever I'm doing on the screen, especially dealing with directories, can usually be done via command line as well. So like that source can either come from the programmer or it can also come from the directory. It just kind of depends on what you're trying to do. And your open editor, because I kind of alluded to that at the beginning, how programmer is our open editor. Your open editor will be whatever, if you're opening like a scene. So maybe if we need to edit this scene to have let's just say the Uno's in the back on. So we can open up the scene here, open scene. So hold it. You could also do that via scene 1 open. We now see our information and we can see our active editor has changed from the programmer to scene 1 now. So whatever changes I'm making now get put into scene 1. I'm going to turn off blind because that's on by default, 301 through full. And we'll just tilt it downstage a little bit. Cool. So now we have this done. And now if we just wanted to have the command as update for our scene, we just hit update. And it takes it in and puts it to that to scene 1 into that active editor. Cool. Any other questions? Cool. See, you got that one about the difference between scenes and cues. I'll say it out loud just to make sure that everyone knows. The main difference between scenes and cues is that scenes are a single cue list, or a single shot cues, as Joe put it. So it's just going to hold one look or one action, whereas cues can be organized into cue lists. Scenes, I like to call them like single cue lists. So basically, this look on stage could be just a cue that's inside a cue list. I like them for different. I like them for busking purposes and for just holding single looks throughout the show file.
Scene directory is where it's at for busking.
Yep. Exactly. And if you go into and if you want to learn more about scenes, there is a webinar on YouTube on the ETC study hall page that talks about like the benefits of using scenes and then how you can really maximize scenes for some busking stuff. I accidentally got stuck in blind last week. How do I get out? So usually if you get stuck in blind, it's just because the blind button's turned on. So if you turn off blind, you should be out of blind at that point. Now, you might have done it accidentally by opening a scene or a cue or a palette, and whenever you open an editor, by default, you get put into blind. So
That's probably likely happened.
Yeah. So if I did like scene 1 and then hit open, if you notice, blind turns on. So now, and if I don't notice exactly and scene 1 just stays open, but I open like another view on top of it, doesn't help that my views are not additive, but I open like an additive view, you'll get hidden that scene 1 was actually open and you're still in blind at that point. Just make sure, and you can see whatever, like I said, you can see whatever editor you have open from the bottom of your screen, your right hand display. Right now it says programmer, but it could say scene 1, scene 12. It might even say color 35, just depending on what you have open. Cool. Any other questions related to command, source command destination?
Oh, sorry. I got
Yeah, no, you're good. Van just tossed one in. When merging time as a fan, i.e. time 0 through 3 is 0, why must you have a time-only palette to reference and not just info from the command line, even when shown blue? Time is weird because you also need to have values associated with the time before you can actually apply a time. So I think that's why you probably have to have some kind of palette, because the palette already has those values associated.
If you're coming from nothing to something, yeah, you have to have values where to and from.
Yeah, because like right now so if I just hit 1 through 9, enter, like I don't have any parameter values to assign a time to. So I think even if I do time 0 through 9, enter, like nothing gets in there. And I think, yeah, and as I start applying parameter values, it didn't take that time because you have to have something before your time is applied. Because, yeah, so that might be why, Van. Because it's still a valid syntax command, it just doesn't get applied until you have information actually there.
Yeah, it's got to know what it's doing.
Yeah. So even if so there are some cases where we will give you a blue command line and it doesn't apply anything, like in the Van's case with the fan time. Because it is still technically a valid command, like being able to 1 through 9 and then time 0 through 2. It helps if I actually hit the right buttons. Enter 0 and time 0 through 5, enter. Like that is still a valid command if there were like values associated in the programmer. So time 0 through 5, enter is still a valid way to apply your fade time or your fanning delay time. But without actually parameters in there, we can't merge it in. which this actually might be a good segue into masks. Oh, wait, hold on. Does color time work? And this is more of speaking to, sorry, I completely missed all of these questions before I said segueing. And this might be speaking of a merge to such as merging to scenes 1 through 14. Color time. I haven't tried that, Van. Let's tackle that once I talk about masking a little bit more.
Yeah, that should work. Yeah. Take, scene 1 through 14, color time to update or color time to enter should work.
Yeah, and that should only apply to color at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's fairly common to go scene 1 through 100, time to enter.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why you use the scenes.
Right.
Is there a way to record only budding into a directory? You cannot record budding or any type of segments in budding does not get recorded into a into any type of directory. Segments and budding always has to be done on the fly.
Yeah. But what you can do is you can store your order, and then which would at least save some time in the buddying and grouping.
Yeah, exactly. So your groups and your group directory is really any your scene and queues are also going to store what your selection order was at the same time. But I could have just lied about the scenes and queues. I know for sure your group directory is going to store your selection order. So if you selected like the Unos in the back and apply a buddy of 5 to them, let's say, and you fanned that out, well, it selected it in that selection order that you did. So if you did 301 through 321, then it is in that same selection order. And even if you hit 301 through 321 and then hit select and then so I am all about hitting the wrong buttons today. Select and then shuffle. That'll and when you record the group, that'll store your fixture selection order as well after you hit that selection order. And again, we did a whole webinar over selection order a couple weeks ago, and that should be on YouTube by now as well. Cool. Let's go into masking, and then maybe Van, we can dive in a little bit more about merging that stuff. So we're going to now talk about these other two options in the command, or these other two. I'm going to go with options in the command line structure, and that's mask and options. These are where more of the power of the command line structure can really come into play, just because then you can start turning off tracking on certain cues when you record. You can start masking out certain parameters. And so like when I say masking out, I mean, you can start to filter out what data you want exactly. So like if I only wanted to record color from the programmer instead of intensity, we can do that all via the command line without having to knock out color. We can just say, hey, only grab color, and leave intensity inside the programmer. So let's try that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and release everything. So pig release to release everything out of here. We are going to go into the programmer, have that open as a value here. I'm going to get color picker, color and positions. And I should record this as a view to make this easier. All right. So now if I'm going to select my fixtures 1 through 9 here, so I'm going to hit 1 through 9 at full. We're going to go ahead and place them in magenta, let's say, and fan them out a little bit. And then we're going to do the same thing, 111 through 118 at full. Cool. And yellow, let's say. All right. So we have these fixtures. We only want to store, and they're inside our programmer. And now we only want to store like the color information into the scene directory. So so to do this, we have our source, which is our programmer. We're going to say color, which is going to be our mask. So inside this structure, it goes source, mask, command, option, destination. So if we hit color, and then record scene, and tap in the scene directory where you want it. So let me undo that real quick and go a little bit slower. So everything's selected. We're going to hit color, record, scene. So now it's asking, where do we want to place this scene? So we're going to say scene 2. It gets recorded into scene 2. And if I open scene 2 now, scene 2 open, we only got the color information actually stored at that point. We didn't get anything else because by that command line syntax saying color record scene 2, by having that color in there before the command, we're specifying exactly what information we want to record at that point in time. So now I could, in theory, so go scene 2. So scene 2 is going, and now when I bring up my fixtures 1 through 9, they're going to be in that magenta color. So so that's like another power towards like why use scenes, because you can it's a little bit easier to just click in on the different looks. So now because they're in magenta, I don't have to worry about specifying a color inside my programmer. It's just coming through that scene. And then when I bring up those other fixtures, so the 111 through 118 at full, they're in that yellow coming in from scene 2. So again, so that's where masking really comes into play, is you can specify exactly what you want to record at that point. We can also use masking when copying certain information from one thing to another. So if I wanted to, in the scene directory, scenes, great. So let's say scene 1, let's just look at it real quick. Scene 1 has 1 through 9, 111 through 118, and then our Unos in the back. So let's say I only wanted to copy out, the color information and the intensity information from this scene. So our source at this point is going to be scene 1. And then, like I said, I want color and intensity. So I'm going to hit color and intensity and then copy. And then we're going to specify that we want it to go into scene 10. So right now our source is scene 1, or what we're masking out. So the information that we want to grab from the source is color intensity. Our action is copy, and our destination is scene 10. So then when I press enter, we have our scene 10 here. I'm going to pig release. And then when we go scene 1, we only get color and intensity. We don't get any of the position information because we didn't specify that we wanted the intensity and the position information. This is where stuff gets really, like I said, really cool. So like some people will, inside their scene directory, that you can make like a row with all your spot 2Ks, a row with all your wash 2Ks, and have like your colors. So to make like a color picker that's only done on playback. But they'll just do one row with all the fixtures, and I'll just do it real quick. So I have all the fixtures selected. I'm going to turn highlight on. They're going to go into a color here. We'll just make them green. So we have one green color here for scene 11. Now, if I only want let's say I only want the spot 2Ks to go next to it, then I can say, oh, now that I'm trying to do it, my syntax is losing as soon as I'm doing a syntax thing. It's your source, which is going to be scene 11, and then your mask. So your mask is going to be all the fixtures for the spot 2K. So we're going to say group 1, and then copy to 21. So now if I go 21, that'll turn the spot 2Ks green in the back there. Big release everything real quick. Full. Turn off highlight. When I go this, scene 21 here, they're all green. And if I bring up the other fixtures, we'll see that they are not all green because scene 21 only has the spot 2Ks. So by using masking, you can really pull out certain fixtures from a specific scene if you needed to.
If you really want to do the deep dive on scenes, Jonathan Armstrong has a couple videos on the Hog Facebook group that are pretty epic in this area.
Oh, that is completely true. And I think he got them on YouTube recently. Not on our YouTube, but on a YouTube channel. Yeah. I highly recommend going to watch them because he goes into a lot more detail than what I just did right there. And he talks about actually making that color picker and then how to like apply waves across that as well and change your wave times and stuff like that. It's like a color wipe basically. It's a really good tutorial to walk through. Cool. So again, that was scene 11, and then you specified the group that you wanted to mask out, or so that, like the information that you wanted to grab in. And then you hit copy and then your destination. So again, once you start like realizing what these masks can actually do, you don't have to copy like the entire scene into something. You can start dwindling out what info you actually wanted to copy out. And so now that's really mask. And let's talk about options also. So you have source, mask, command, and then your options, and then destination. So options change how the command actually operates. Excuse me. So let's just make a queue here. I'm gonna pig release again. We're gonna tilt down stage, and we will put them in blue. 301 through it full. Tilt them down as well. And make them yellow, I guess. And we're going to record this as Q1 here. So just on fader 10, record juice Q1. And then we are going to say in here that, what do we want to do in the next one? 101 through it full. Cool. And we're going to add in 101 here. So when you press record now, we have an option. We have options. So when we press record, here are all the options that we can actually do. A lot of these might have like action buttons associated to them. So like there's like the merge button, but there's the merge button up here. So you can actually change that as well. Some of them apply to palette. So like the per type, per fixture, allow references as direct. Those all apply to palette options here. And then there's also a record state button. So this would be a different option here. So if we wanted this queue to say, I want it to look exactly like it looks right now. What the programmer is telling the console to do, though, if we were to record this queue as it stands right now, we would only get the 101 through 118 information into Q2, meaning that 1 through 9 and the Unos will follow into Q2 because of tracking. Now, if we hit record state, what record state is going to do is it's going to take the total state of what this queue would look like. So that includes all the fixture information, so 1 through 9 and the Unos. So first thing I'm going to do is just record this without pressing state so we can see what happens here. Q2 open. And you can see with Q2 open, I'm going to turn off show state. We have only 101 through 118 because the rest of the information is tracking through. So right now, this was the only new information added into the queue. So close the windows here. I'm going to undo my record. So now we're going to record this information, but record it with state. So press record, turn on state as an option here. Press choose, and now we have Q2 chosen. If I do Q2 open, and because now our total state is everything inside this queue. That means 1 through 9 and 301 through 316. It's not tracking through anymore. Show state is turned off, so this is showing you the total view of what's inside this queue. So these are just the different actions that you have. And again, different options that you have whenever you do press record. There are different options, like when you press merge. Update also gets different options as well. So let's do another example here. I'm going to go ahead and hit go. I'll hit go here as well. So let's say I actually wanted to change the background. I wanted to change the colors of 101 through 110. Oops, 101 through 110, enter. We're going to make them cyan here. So now whenever I press update, we also get a couple options here when I press update. There's also track forward, track backward, and then your kind mask pops up. These are all different options that you get when you record. The nifty one that I'm going to point out here is the track backwards button. When you press track backwards, either there or you check the box up here, it is going to actually make that update in the QB wherever this change was actually made, like wherever the first change happened. Oh, of course, I chose the Q2. I changed the fixtures that do not exist in Q1. That would be my luck. So let's do the Unos instead. Sorry, guys. Unos will make red. Update. Track backwards. Okay. So now when we go to the first Q, they should have... Did I do track backwards wrong, Joe? Isn't it supposed to change the first Q where it changed? Or is it because I pressed state and that messed things up? I think me pressing state messed things up. You're muted, by the way.
Yeah, state.
State messed it up. So track backwards would go to the first time where that hard value occurs, which would be in its own Q too, because I press state. So let's go back and just record a new Q list and try again, where I actually only 1 through 9 at full, adjust one thing, record, choose. And then we're going to do color here and record, choose. So now in Q2, open, I only have the yellow mix. Cool. Great. Now if I want to change this position here, bring it up here. Now when I hit update, track backwards, okay. So now Q1, because I hit track backwards as that option for the update, it updated the position information inside Q1 instead of just in Q2. Oops. Camera. Position 1. There we go. Okay. And so those are the different like options that exist when you record. When you do any kind of command. There's also like the kind mask option, which is pretty similar to if you apply the mask at the beginning, like in the middle between your source and your command option. It just also pops up here because it is a way to change how you're recording or what you're recording. Because you could say, oh no, I do actually only want intensity recorded. I don't want anything else recorded. So you could always go back and get that as well. Any questions about kind of like what I showed? I know that we can kind of a little bit talk about Van's merging of time only stuff.
I think you'll notice there's a lot of stuff in there that using the command line will really speed up your workflow, especially if you don't happen to have lots of window real estate. You happen to know that you're just light straight down as position 1, and you could just select group 2, position 1 at full, and all command line based, and it
Scene.
can keep it from having to shuffle windows around.
Yeah, no, you are definitely right with that. Delete. Yes, I do want to delete. And so yeah, exactly. So command lines are also really nice if you know your objects right off the bat. So like usually I know that red is always color palette 12, for example, in my show. So if I quickly need to go to the red color palette, I can just select my fixtures, hit color 12, enter, and they're all in red at that point. Like I don't have to go and double tap color and then open up that color directory and go and try to find where the color red is actually. It's just, it's in the number that I'm used to it being in. Um,
Yeah, and you can even lay your palettes out in a manner that you're familiar with what they are. Like you could put all your effects, rearrange them so that all your color effects are 1 through 10, all your position
yeah.
effects are 11 through 20. So even if you don't know them by heart, if you want your lights to move, you could go effect 20, enter, and you know you're going to get something that's moving.
Hmm. That's definitely true. Yeah, I do that a lot for the circle effect because the circle effect is always well, is you when you launch a new show file, it's always effect number one. So I could just very easily 1 through 9 enter effect one enter and they start moving. Um, yeah. So I mean, I do that with the effects. And it's also why whenever I auto palette, I try to keep everything as default as it comes because then I know where all the auto palette information automatically goes by default. So like I said, the effects are the beginning of the effects. The circle is number one. Um, I don't know if I use a lot more of these. But you know where those live. It threw me off in this show file at the beginning because there is no all. So like with me, my all fixture group always starts at fixture number one, and then they start down from there. But that's just not how this show file was made,
I get rid of all as well.
and that's what some people do. And I like to have the row up there also because then it
Crazy
gives me a
people.
place. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's just different workflows. I like the row empty row up there because then it gives me a place to drop groups with specific fixture selections if there's not space off to the side. But it all depends on how you're doing it and what you're set up to do. Um, yeah. Oh, I had an idea that I wanted to show, and of course, it just went out of my mind again. Um, oh, I get asked a lot on how we copy one fixture type to another. Like not copy like literally spot 2K to spot 3K, but copy like I have my effect that are going on fixtures numbers one on my solo spots, and I have effect one going there, and it's going into a nice size with a nice offset. But I now want it to work on fixture numbers 101 through 109, for example. As long as you're copying like information that exists on both fixtures, it should be pretty easy and pretty straightforward. So you have 1 through 9. You just need to select those fixtures. So your source is going to be fixtures 1 through 9. Your command is going to be copy, and your destination is going to be the new fixtures that you want to apply it to. 101 through 109. Enter. And now they are doing the same effect with the same information also. So again, if you just kind of like think about source command destination, you can get yourself around the desk. Um, so like you knew you had fixtures 1 through 9, you wanted that information, so that would be the source to copy over to these other fixtures. Well, you said the action there, so copy, and then you select the fixtures and you press enter that you want it to copy to. It's also one of the things that I really like about Hog. It's like if you just think about the action you want to do, there's probably a command for it. That's really similar to the word that you're using. It's a little bit conversational in that way. Um, let's see what was going on here. We were trying to merge color time that's fanned over a range. So I don't think we allow you to merge color fanned. I mean, any type of fanning information into a scene because it might not exist on all those fixtures. If that makes sense. Fan. Like if you're trying to merge 1 through 9 that's fanned out with like a time. No, well, as long as the fixture's in there, it should work. 1 through 9, color, blue. I don't like cyan. Time, 0 through 9. So I have applied a delay time here. I'm going to record that as scene 1. Now if I go, great, we got it fanned out. And he said it didn't work on a range of scenes. So I'm going to take scene 1 So if you need to copy a scene directly into the programmer, so your source can be scene 1, your action's going to be copy, and then if you just hit enter afterwards, it copies that info into the programmer. I'm going to make it red, though, instead. I'm going to record here. Right, and then if it goes here, we now have red instead. Okay, so in theory, I should be able to scene 1 through 2, intensity, time, 0, enter. So that just updated my intensity delay time to 0 seconds instead of fanning. Same there. Okay, and then, so in theory, I should be 1 through 9, time, 0 through 2, enter, scene, or color. Yeah, so you have to make sure you have information in there first, Van, like, because right now there's no timing information for us to merge into. So 1 through 9, enter. And if I do color touch, so I've now touched the color information only. So I only said, hey, touch that color information. It left everything else alone. Time, 0 through 9, enter. Because that's the only information there, I'm going to do time, 0 through 2, enter. Merge scene 1 plus scene 2. Did that work? Open, delay. No, it did not. I think, Van, I actually logged a bug against this, actually. So I think this might be a bug that you're running into. I think it should work. Unless, Joe, you think there was something wrong with my steps that I did.
I was answering another question, so...
Oh, my bad.
One time per fixture.
It works per fixture, group 1 color. I guess I'm trying to find a way to X out the time only palette. So you just can't do fan timing right now, Van, in it?
No, not in scenes. Yeah, no.
Yeah. I think it's just because like each scene could have a different amount of fixtures in it, so we don't allow it. I don't think, and I think that's why you use the time only palette, because there's no way to get rid of the time only palette in this and what you're trying to do. Cool. There was a question about global effects. Joe kind of summed it up. Joe, do you want to talk about what you just said?
Campbell just asked about global effects. So you can see you can record any directory item that we have. You can record it as per fixture, per type, or global. Per fixture means it's that specific fixture, just that one, like spot number 1. Per type would be all the spots, and then global would be any fixture that shares that construct. So a position effect recorded globally, which I believe is the default for position, will be able to work on any fixture that has pen and tilt.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think that's right. And just be aware, global effects, even if you mark it as global, if any parameter in that effect is fanned out, it does not get recorded as global at that point. It gets put down to per fixture. So if you were to fan your offset, you can't make that a global effect. So if you're trying to make a global effect, keep your offsets at 0, or at least one number that applies to the entire selection, and then you should be able to record a global effect. Yeah. That's usually what gets people, is they're like, oh, I fanned out my offset. I'm like, no, you can't fan out the offset, because then that gives unique values for everything. Mm-hmm. The key with global is you don't want unique values for everything. Cool. I remembered what I was going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and make a fun look here, and it's going to look like a mess. So when I say fun, I mean a mess. Full also, actually, we're going to make that at 60. Position that looks fun. Yellow? No. Cool. And then let's do, we haven't messed with the LED bars. 401 through full. And we'll make those red. Cool. I'm going to clear out a fader here. All right, so we have this fader. Hold down, delete. Press choose. Okay, well, that's fun. I'm just going to go to the next page then. Great. I'm going to record this as a cue here. Choose go. Okay, so you can also, knowing a little bit about this live button here, this is going to say select all fixtures that have an intensity above 0% intensity. So yeah, intensity above 0%. So if I hit live and then I hit enter, it's going to select all those fixtures. You can combine this with touch and suck and start grabbing in fixture information. So I hit live. So I'm going to hit clear. If I hit live and then suck at this point, it's going to grab all the information that I have changed. So intensity, position, color here. Now you can also, before you hit suck, which is going to be your command in this case, you can also put some masks in here. So I could say live color suck. And when I say color suck, so active color suck, it's only going to grab the color information into our programmer. It's not going to grab anything else. And we can see all of that here. If I say live intensity suck, it's only going to grab the intensity information at this point. I can also say live position and intensity suck, and it'll grab that information at that point. So again, it's going through and it's selecting all of the fixtures that are above 0% intensity, and then the parameters that match what I said to grab. So that match that mask. So in this case, it meant intensity and position. So that's just an easy way. Like if you know fixtures are on, but you only want to grab the color information, like you want the colors to stay, but you want to change all of the positions for all the fixtures that are on right now. Well, cool. So I'm going to hit live color suck. That brings it into the programmer. And if I go and adjust a scene at that point, which doesn't help because it's all colorful at that point, I can just go and change like my position now. And it's not changing the color at this point because I brought that in. Now, if these were scenes, we also wouldn't see them inside the programmer. But utilizing that masking and that live button, you can actually start grabbing only the specific information that you want that's currently on stage. And then once you hit clear, they all go back to what that cue was doing. So it can really help you if you will just want to keep certain parts of the look on stage, or you want to take what's on stage and record it into a different cue or scene, or if you want to record it into a palette somewhere. Like maybe if I forgot to, maybe if I forgot to record this into a position palette, well, I can hit live position suck, grab my position information, and then toss this into quickly a position palette. So now whenever I want to recall that position information, I just click on it and it's back into that same position that I had before. So utilizing this masking option, it gives it a super easy way to, grab certain information. Is this capture file available online? Yes, go to the ETC Study Hall YouTube videos and they should be linked inside every description. Like there should be a link to download inside all the YouTube videos. So that should be there. It also has a base show file, so you don't have to sit through and try to guess where everything's patched as well. Is there a possible workaround to use an if function like some consoles do, such as if color is blue, can you touch just the fixtures outputting blue? Yes, you can.
Specifically, if it's referencing a palette.
Yeah, exactly. So if it's referencing a palette, you can, or if it's an intensity. So like I'm going to go these lights. I use the cyan color palette here. Gotta get my color directory open. Color. So you can hit live, and then it's cyan. So live cyan, it's going to grab all the fixtures that are in cyan. Live red. I didn't hit live first. Live red. It's going to grab all the fixtures that are in red. So yeah, you definitely can. And then you can also do it based on intensity. So like I have fixtures that are at 60% there, I think. So I can hit live at 60, enter, and that's only going to grab the fixtures that are at 60%. So you can, if you're using a palette or if you are using specific intensities, you can grab certain fixtures that are currently on in that specific information. It's also one of the reasons I suggest utilizing palettes is because of this. So like if you're like, great, I just need all the fixtures that are currently on in cyan because it's going to span all of my fixture selections. Well, then live cyan and you're able to grab it. If you didn't have that position palette that color palette for cyan, you wouldn't be able to do it then.
Yeah, I end up being bit by that all the time because you select your fixtures and the cyan wheel is just right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I find myself, well, I've made all this weird jumbled order of fixtures cyan. I would be really cool if I had a quick way to grab them all, but I don't because I'm a dumbass and didn't use palettes.
I mean, we all get bitten by it and we all learn, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Is there a way to make a macro to tell the consoles to find fixtures that are in two groups? For example, fixtures that are in front of house and Sola 750. So you just want to grab all the fixtures that are inside the front of house group and the Sola Frame 750 group? Or find the Sola Frame 750s that are inside the front of house group?
Yeah, you want to select just the 750s in the front of house group.
Do you know how to do that quickly, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Do you say, yeah?
Or
are you thinking? I'm sorry.
I'm thinking.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Because you could select a group and then press minus and then another group.
Right.
Retract those others.
So like if I'm going to record this. Look, if I had that empty row up there, I'd just toss this group up there. So if here, great, we're going to record this as a group, just here. Spot plus wash. So like what Joe was saying was you have this group, it selects it all, but then you can just hit the minus key and retract like the spot 2000s from the group. I don't think that necessarily needs a macro if that accomplishes what you're looking to accomplish. To me, it seems decent. Or another case is I have all my wash 2Ks highlights turned on, but actually I don't want the upstage right. So I hit the minus button, I select the upstage right, yep, and they're gone. Minus the upstage left as well, and they're gone as well. So you can definitely do it that way as well. You make macros, so I can do that in 2 clicks. Well, I mean, it makes sense. It's just, or you could just record a group now that it's done. And then you don't need a macro as well. I'm not a big macro person unless I'm repeating the thing over and over again. Like if I need a macro to select a specific set of lights, I'll just record a group with that specific set of lights. Also, because then it doesn't take over my command line. Macros and hog will completely take, if you're doing a keystroke macro, macros and hog completely take over your command line. So if you fire a macro, it's exactly like you pushing the buttons yourself. So if you have something else. Exactly. And if you've left something in your command line that you're going to come back to, like you haven't quite finished, I don't know what I would leave in the command line, but if I did, then and I fired a macro, it would erase my macro. I mean, whatever I had in the command line. But I also know that some people really like macros because other desks really like macros.
What we find ourselves doing is asking, like, do you really need that macro?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you maybe just doing something in a kind of convoluted kind of way that there's maybe an easier way to do it that wouldn't require losing a command line?
Yeah. Yeah. basically I try my hardest to not make a macro. Like I know people will make a macro for like their pixel mapping stuff. So because there's a lot of steps involved in pixel mapping. So instead of making a macro, I just put it all in a color palette. And then I can just select the fixtures and then tap on the palette and it's all applied at that point. But it's so I don't have to adjust a macro. It could just be one button push, but again, I don't have to use macro at that point. Cool. That is what I have for command line syntax structure. So if you guys have any questions pertaining to that, please feel free to ask them. If you have questions not pertaining to that, also feel free to ask them. We are here for, we'll say the next, we're here till 1:30 for sure. But I like these questions. And we'll wait for them to come in. And again, it doesn't have to pertain to the command line syntax. It's just really nice to have like a one video that someone can go and reference later if they're trying to figure out what the command line syntax does exactly.
You know, Van, I don't really use reference palettes. I get what, if you were making position palettes and you have the band palette and then you inside the band palette is all these other individual palettes that may be up where it might save you a little bit of time. I don't use them.
I also don't use them, but I think Noah made this show, so when he made this show file, he actually used a lot of these reference palettes here. So we can see like there's this band palette. So with this band, and we can tell it's a reference palette because it has this R here. So if I open up this band palette, we can actually see it's made up of all these other positions, which could either lead you to speeding up your time because then you only have to adjust like the keys position palette, or you only have to adjust like this one specific position palette, and then your band then gets updated at that point. So like 1 through 9 at full, I can do the band, cool, and it's really utilizing this keys position palette. So if I were to go and change this palette to be up here, I'm going to hit record over the palette, and I'm going to hit merge to just merge that info together. Now, if I were to select 1 through 9 at full and click that band, we can see the two lights that were focused on the band are now referencing that keys, are still referencing that keys palette. Oops. So that, I mean, really, it could be useful. Like, I guess it could be more useful for touring situations, where you go from one place to another and you really just need to adjust that one spot. Then that one spot gets a position palette, and then it can feed into the rest of your band palettes or the rest of your palettes if you needed to. I'm going to undo my thing that I merged into that keys palette.
But I mean, if we're talking about maybe practices, if you're talking, like Megan said, a band situation where your stage layout is basically the same, but obviously a little different each day based on trim heights and stage sizes and things like that. You would go and have all your lights on those primary positions. Go ahead and update those primary positions, and then in theory, all your band position palettes that are referenced are referencing rather will fall in line, correct?
Mm-hmm. I haven't heard something good. Like I said, I don't use them very often, but I do want to make them part of my workflow for more like theater practice, because you could do this with like your focus palettes then. Like you have a gobo wheel 1 focus, and then your gobo palettes could then reference that focus itself. And then you only update that one focus, and you don't have to update each palette individually.
Yeah,
yeah, I just haven't, there's no shows. I haven't been able to go and use it. Yeah, so you would have like a different focus for each gobo wheel and then you could just get that focus into that gobo wheel, into that gobo palette itself. So it could, I mean, that's just another best practice that I've heard for using reference palettes. Um, I don't, I mean, I don't really have any other use case. I don't have anything else for reference palettes though. Um, yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit. Gobo references. Yeah, Gobo, exactly. Gobo would reference your focus palette at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Campbell asked, does a macro add on to the end of the command line or erase and replace? And Joe, you said erase and replace. I'm going to say it depends. If you delete that first step or not.
Oh, right. Right.
So there is a step that says erase your command line. You can say delete that first step in the macro, and then it can add on to what you have on the command line if you wanted to. So it by default it will erase and replace, and it'll recall the first view. So just be aware what that first step does too. It'll recall whatever your window positions are when you record the macro. So just be aware if you go macro and you don't delete that first step, it might completely change your windows up on you. Being able to follow a cursor on a plot, it would be so happy. Sorry, it's a feature request.
Oh.
Not a question. If you guys could ever implement fixtures, being able to follow a cursor on a plot. Oh, interesting. So
position?
Like in real life position, or like changing the plot position, like the fixture position, like how it's focused inside the plot. Okay, real life position.
What is it here at High End ETC?
We're always
developing new and interesting ideas.
Yeah. I would say, Trevor, go put that on the forums and then it'll get logged. I know the forums have been kind of like occasionally a high-end person will respond to the forums, but that should start getting picked back up again more. Yeah, but go see. I would say that is a really cool idea. And I would say to get that logged on the forums. The best way to get fixtures requested is to go to features requested is to go to forums.highend.com, and there is a request section there. Is there a way to change the defaults of a macro? There is not a way to change the default first step of the macro. No. Yeah, I don't think you can.
No.
Sorry, I'm responding to the chat.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Mm-hmm. Just making sure that we get that. Make sure to get them requested.
Yes. Product management.
If there's any other, it's true. It's the only way we get. I mean, without people using and requesting new features, we can just guess what you want. It'd be better to know what you want. Any other questions, guys? And again, it doesn't have to pertain to what we talked about today. At this point, it's just open Q&A. Like the reference palettes was a good one. Because I don't think I have any more examples in here. I'm going to look through and see if there are other examples that I may have missed that I actually wanted to talk about, but I don't think so. It's not.
I'm guessing last week's webinar will be on there soon.
Is it not on there? When will last week's webinar be on the study hall page? It should be on there already. That's, yeah. I would check the YouTube page and not the actual study hall page. The YouTube channel, I know for sure gets them. Yeah. So ETC Study Hall for the YouTube. Where can you download Hog4PC? Where do you get the visualizer? When you download Hog4PC, where do you get the visualizer? So this is Capture. So we're just using this Capture program, a presentation file from the Capture program. All of these, they should be linked to at the bottom in the description to the YouTube videos. So you should be able to go to YouTube, search for ETC Study Hall, find one of the ones that, find one of the videos for the Hog4 series, the webinars that we do, the learn, and then you should be able to, there should be a link in the description to actually download the info. If there is not a link, just shoot an email to support@highend.com, or if you want to be, and we'll send you the whole little package deal that we have with the show file, the base show file, and the visualizer. You can also try to spell my name, but my name is wrong. Is usually spelled wrong because it's hard to spell. Actually, I can probably just drop the link in the chat. Why make y'all go to 8 million different places? Copy link.
If you want.
There you go. The link should be in an answer here. If you want an effect to be only one size of one fixture, can you input size of one slash, or do you have to do the math manually?
Only size of one fixture?
I don't understand.
What type of effect?
Oh, that's also a better question. Because like when you apply an effect, I'm just going to talk until we get an answer. So if we're going to go 1 at 50, just a really basic overview of an effect. So when you apply an effect, you have your table here. So you apply your sine wave here. So then your size is just going to be how far above and below that base value we're going to go. So because this is set to 50% for the size of the intensity effect, it means we're going to go 50% above the base value. So that's where the lights were before you applied the effect. So that's going to be 50% above the intensity of 50%. So that means we're going to go all the way to 100% and then 50% below the base value. So all the way to 0%. So we're going to go from 100% to 0%, and that's just going to follow the sine wave. But only want one fixture to fly. So then you're going to want probably to adjust your offset.
And maybe size.
Yeah, and your size to be a bit different than at that point.
No, I'm sorry, not size, length.
Yeah, I'm gonna do effect, and it's fan. There is math to be able to do effect offsets. I do not know said math to do effect offsets evenly. Did I? No. What did I do? Why is it not going? Oh, I have highlight turned on.
Still on.
Should be good now. The fixtures are doing their thing. I'm going to go back to an offset of 0. Toggle blind. Fan. All right, so like I'm just adjusting the offset at that point. You could also, so your length is how long that effect cycle is going to go for.
You don't see it.
Oh, you don't? Is it just, I have it. I think it might be the refresh rate on what's on Capture. I mean, on whatever it is that we're using. WebEx. There we go. Let's try this instead. So now it should snap on and snap off. Does it go on and off now?
No. Do you have highlight on?
No, I don't. Did I freeze?
It must have. Oh yeah, you did.
Oh, awesome. Let me stop sharing and come back.
Trevor, to kind of talk about this a little bit there, the console will do the math for you. There's actually some dedicated controls in there called spread and offset. Offset is what all is changing the starting point for the wave shape on the effect. So if you have all your fixtures selected and then turn offset, they'll all go to a different to the same different starting point. But if you hold down fan and turn offset, you're giving each fixture a separate starting point, giving you that range of bounce that you're asking for. We simplified that and just gave you a one knob for spread, and you just turn the spread knob, and it then spreads the offset amongst the fixture order you've got selected. And since this session's about the command line,
there we go.
You can enter it in command line as well. Yeah, we see it.
Awesome. And that I was just following with the spread thing that you said. This is at 100% spread. If you increase your spread, it'll start to get weird. It's get different. Like Joe was saying, it changes your offset.
But Trevor, to say, if you're looking for lights to go left to right repeatedly, man, make it chase. It's going to be way more controllable.
Yeah, I would say chase. I would say the chase is the way to go for one if you need super controlled thing, and it's actually super easy to make a chase. You can either do one light at a time. So I'm gonna clear this out and try again, and just show the chase that I would do. One at full, record, and I'm just gonna record it on fader 4 and choose. So it depends on how much control you want. 2 at full, record, enter. 3 at full, record, enter. 4 at full, record, enter. 5 at full. There's a couple different ways. So I'm just going to do the first 5 lights. So once you go into your options here, you check the is a chase option. And then there's an option here from direction to bounce. So now when I go, it's going to go, but they're not all one at a time. So then I can check queue only though. And when I check queue only, they are doing that one at a time. It might be weird because it's bouncing back though with queue only.
When you got to fade.
Oh, yeah.
Take the fade off. There you go.
There we go. And then you can adjust once you can adjust your playback rate there. I think it's Alt 4. Yeah, there we go. And I can use that encoder wheel, and I can adjust my playback rate to go fast if I need to, or slow. And then with it broken up like this, you can also then do the tap tempo with the chase. Is you hold down choose and then you hit go, and it's going to learn that tap tempo, and then it'll adjust that playback rate to be what you just tapped to. It might be a little bit weirder because I'm on PC. Or I could just go in here, change my standard to my playback rate.
Yeah, there you go.
That is so much easier on PC. And I can speed it up or slow it down at that point. And again, that's just by using the turning your queue list into a queue only at that point. You could instead also fan your your delay times. 1 through 9 at full, time 0, time 0 through 8. And then I'll just do at 0, so we have 1 to go down to. And then we'll set that as a chase also. Queue list is a chase. There's my fader. Oh, programmer's on. But this one isn't as controllable. Like if you choose a bounce, it doesn't bounce. I don't think it bounces back normal, like we saw in the last one.
For this type of stuff, you're always going to do better with a chase.
Yeah, when you're trying to be super specific like that, exactly like Joe said, you're going to be better with a chase on that.
A lot of time, like doing music programming and things like that. If there's a pop, I chase all day.
Mm-hmm. Um, James said there was no YouTube link in what I just posted. There shouldn't. Yeah, I just posted directly link to. Oh yeah, there should be a. I will get the YouTube link. I thought there was. I thought. James, I'll shoot me an email to remind me to get you that YouTube link. I think it's there on the ETC Study Hall page, YouTube somewhere. The video team said it was done, so I'm assuming that it's done, and I just don't know where it is exactly. It should be there. I don't know why it's not. I know some consoles let you use the form to input a calculation and it will do the math. I haven't touched Hog. If you knew, it would do that. The only
that's what the spread is doing.
Yeah, exactly. The spread is doing that evenly. It's just going to spread out your offsets evenly based on your fixture selection. With that being said, to answer Campbell's question, there is no way to set an effect spread as global because all spread is doing is changing your offset. So it's still fanning out your offset just equally instead of proportionately. Cool. Any last minute questions, guys, before we wrap up? Hopefully that command line stuff makes a little bit more sense when trying to approach the console to get certain things to happen. Also, Trevor, you were asking about the effect and getting one light to come on at a time. Paul and I actually did that at the end of the last webinar. Like we did an effect that did that. So if you want to catch, it should be on YouTube somewhere. If it's not on YouTube, I'll get on the video team to see if we can get it on there tomorrow, or later today. But the last 10 minutes are spent trying to get that effect that goes on one at a time. So it's definitely something to check out. Yeah, if you have the link, Wayne, to last week's webinar, post it in the chat, and that way everyone has it. I'm not going to say no, don't post it. Cool. All right, then with that being said, I don't think any other questions are really coming through. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks guys.